When Napoleon lay at Boulogne for a year with his flat-bottomed boats and his grand army, he was told by someone, "There are bitter weeds in England." There are certainly a great many more of them since the British Expeditionary Force returned. So I have, myself, full confidence that if all do their duty, if nothing is neglected, and if the best arrangements are made as they are being made, we shall prove ourselves once more able to defend our island home, to ride out the storm of war, and to outlive the menace of tyranny, if necessary, for years, if necessary, alone. At any rate, that is what we are going to try to do. That is the resolve of His Majesty's government, every man of them. That is the will of Parliament and the nation. The British Empire and the French Republic, linked together in their cause and in their need, will defend to the death their native soil, aiding each other like good comrades to the utmost of their strength. Even though large tracts of Europe and many old and famous states have fallen, or may fall, into the grip of the Gestapo and all the odious apparatus of Nazi rule, we shall not flag or fail. We shall go on to the end. We shall fight in France. We shall fight on the seas and oceans. We shall fight with growing confidence and growing strength in the air. We shall defend our island, whatever the cost may be. We shall fight on the beaches. We shall fight on the landing grounds. We shall fight in the fields and in the streets. We shall fight in the hills. We shall never surrender. And even if, which I do not for a moment believe, this island, or a large part of it, were subjugated and starving, then our empire beyond is armed and guarded by the British fleet, will carry on the struggle until, in God's good time, the new world with all its power and might steps forth to the rescue and the liberation of the old. Greetings, my dear friends, and welcome to another episode of Reading Epic Threads. I'm your host, Patrick Gunnels, joining you from Deadwood, South Dakota. And today is August 15th, 2024 at 2:07 p.m. Mountain Daylight Time. I'm very pleased to be with you today. I'm so very sorry that I haven't been doing Reading Epic Threads in so very long. The fact is, I've been beyond swamped, and I want to get back to it very soon. I actually opened up the brief today with Erik Carlson, one of my other absolute favorites. But today, it's going to be Joe Lange. So let's just get straight to it. Don't forget to go to epicminerals.net. Use promo code Shapiro to pry 10% from my grasping hands. We're going to do a drawing right after Sunday night, a drawing for 20 people to get a prototype product. That's going to be Epic Moisture Creamy Body Butter and Rainfall 2-ounce Travel for the airplane. In both cases, infused with rose geranium essential oil, a well-known hormone regulator for women, and just generally the best smell the world has ever known. So go to epicminerals.net, make sure to use promo code Shapiro and get in on the action. Purchase anything at all. Purchase a bar of soap. Purchase another bottle of the Zeolite Extra Spray. Get a body and scalp serum. Get anything at all. And bam, you enter the drawing. We're going to send 20 units. And this is the pack. Both of these. That's right. It's going to be amazing. Check it out, epicminerals.net. Promo code Shapiro. And now, without further ado, from badlands.substack.com, Transparency and Prosecution, There is Simply No Other Way, by Joe Lange. This feature is a follow-up to He's Not a War Hero and is best read with that context in mind. Are Nuremberg-type trials coming to America? Are there going to be military tribunals? Will we ever enter the justice phase? How long must we endure going through the exposure phase in this war before we see real justice delivered to all of these traitors? The exposure phase is the most important aspect of this war, in my opinion. The truth is what is going to set the entire world free. The truth will not only reveal all of the corruption, it will expose all of the evil too. But more importantly, unless all of the corruption and treason are revealed to the people, we will have no chance to prevent this from happening again in the future. All of the evidence of the crimes must be exposed so that there is no question that when justice comes, it is deserved. There is a plan in place, and we must be patient. Justice is coming, and it's a huge part of the plan. How do I know? It was promised. Q drop number 2816. The declassification of all requested documents and more will occur. This is not a game. Do not let personal, emotional desires, do it now, what's taking so long, now, take over. Logical thinking and strategy should always be applied. Game theory. We all want to see equal justice under the law. New threats. Investigations by SDNY, Adam Schiff, MW, in an effort to delay, prevent, release, insurance extension will fail. Transparency is the only way forward. Define the following: treason, sedition, subversion, conspiracy to commit, ... Do you understand and fully appreciate the gravity of the situation? Do you understand and fully appreciate what POTUS endures each and every single day? He loves this country. He loves you. We must stand together in this fight. There is evil in this world. There is darkness in this world. There are those in power who wish to control, enslave you, to keep you sedated, to keep you unaware, to keep you blind. This will be on our timetable, and we will deliver. Transparency and prosecution. There is simply no other way except one. Q. Transparency and prosecution. There is simply no other way. We all want to see equal justice under the law. This is a promise, and justice has always been a huge part of the plan, but the people must be shown why certain specific individuals, many of whom they have looked up to and admired, deserve justice. Their crimes must be exposed first. My hope in this article is to prove to you that the justice part of this plan is coming and that there is no stopping it. I am going to lay out the case for treason and sedition by many known players who were Prince Al-Walid puppets, and then show you why I believe justice is just around the corner. John McCain is one of the major players and was involved in many things. He is the worst kind of traitor. He's a backstabber who has painted himself as a war hero and a patriot with the help of his allies in the controlled media. I ended my last article with this Q drop, number 1090 of April 8th, 2018. Clipboardimage.png. Pictured John McCain with a whole bunch of terrorists. Location, exact location, Q. Pictures leaked for this very moment. Who, what is not pictured? What forces shadowed? No name, contractors, special contractors. What was delivered? Smiles, exact location, exact. Buildings E of spiderweb, marker, open source, Q. We know everything. We have all the evidence of treason, and we know the real reason that McCain was in Syria meeting with these so-called rebel leaders back in May of 2013. Don't miss this important breadcrumb in this drop. Who, what is not pictured? What forces shadowed, no-name contractors, special contractors? Who are the special contractors who were providing security for McCain in Syria? Q knows all of the details and told us exactly who they were. Have you ever heard of Eric Prince and Blackwater? From the very next Q drop, number 1091 of April 8th, 2018. Politico.com. Report. Blackwater CEO Eric Prince was CIA asset. Think double. Why are we confirming this publicly? Why now? Q. What forces shadowed no-name contractors, special contractors? Q told us it was Blackwater. According to Politico, quote, go read this Vanity Fair profile of Blackwater's CEO, until today he reportedly has resigned, Eric Prince, which says he was a CIA asset for the past 6 years before he claims he, quote, was thrown under the bus, end quote. Eric Prince was a valuable asset working for the CIA for 6 years, and then he claims they threw him under the bus. There were charges filed against him, and they tried to bankrupt him with lawsuits, just like they tried to do to General Michael Flynn. Why? According to Vanity Fair, quote, but the truth about Prince may be orders of magnitude stranger than fiction. For the past 6 years, he appears to have led an astonishing double life. Publicly, he has served as Blackwater's CEO and chairman. Privately and secretly, he has been doing the CIA's bidding, helping to craft, fund, and execute operations ranging from inserting personnel into denied areas, places U.S. intelligence has trouble penetrating, to assembling hit teams targeting al-Qaeda members and their allies. Prince, according to sources with knowledge of his activities, has been working as a CIA asset. In a word, as a spy. While his company was busy gleaning more than $1.5 billion in government contracts between 2001 and 2009 by acting, among other things, as an overseas Praetorian Guard for CIA and State Department officials, Prince became a Mr. Fix-It in the war on terror. His access to paramilitary forces, weapons, and aircraft, and his indefatigable ambition, the very attributes that have galvanized his critics, also made him extremely valuable, some say, to U.S. intelligence. End quote. Eric Prince was a CIA shadow government asset because he specialized in certain areas that were mostly hidden from the public. Quote, he has been doing the CIA's bidding, helping to craft, fund, and execute operations ranging from inserting personnel into denied areas, places U.S. intelligence has trouble penetrating. When John McCain traveled to Syria to meet these rebel leaders back in May of 2013, it was Eric Prince and Blackwater who escorted him into and out of Syria. even though we had no diplomatic relations with Syria at the time. Blackwater provided McCain's security on that trip and shadowed his every move. But why did Q say, think double, when referring to Eric Prince? In the Vanity Fair article, the writer said that Prince was living a double life. Is that what Q was referring to? I don't think so at all. Did you see what Q said in the drop right after saying, think double? Why are we confirming this publicly? Why now? Remember, Q at the time was trolling John McCain along with the enemy by mentioning spiderweb and saying they knew the exact location of his meeting in Syria. The reason that Q was confirming Eric Prince and Blackwater as the special contractors during McCain's first trip to Syria and saying think double was because Eric Prince had flipped and was giving up all the evidence of McCain's treason. He no longer worked for the CIA. He was now a double agent and became one of Trump's biggest supporters. In case you doubt me, the very next Q drop on the same day was used to troll John McCain and the enemy even more. The enemy has been following the Q drops from the beginning, and this drop proved to them that we have everything. We are going to expose everything to the American people. Panic in DC. Q drop number 1092 of April 8th, 2018. Haven't seen this one posted yet. Photographer included. We love phones, says Q. No name should know better. Q. What did he mean by that? Q was trolling John McCain. No name. This Q drop revealed a similar picture from the same meeting McCain had in Syria, but there were two people circled in this picture. I wonder who they are and why Q focused on them. This picture was taken with a cell phone, and cell phones can be accessed. Military intelligence captures all electronic data and could have gotten this evidence from whoever's cell phone this picture was taken from. McCain wanted everyone to focus on the man next to him in this picture wearing the white shirt and glasses. Who is he? His name is General Salem Idris, and he leads the Supreme Military Council of the Free Syrian Army. McCain wanted him to be the moderate face of the freedom fighters that he was meeting with while seeking military intervention and funding in order to topple Bashar al-Assad. McCain was trying to garner sympathy for these rebel leaders from the American people. But who are the other people in these pictures who were meeting with McCain? You'll never guess. This helps us better understand why Q didn't want even to call McCain by his name, because McCain is the worst kind of traitor. Q lists who the people are in this picture from Q drop number 1088 of April 8th, 2018. 1. Abu Mossa, ISIS press officer. 2. Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi, head of ISIS. 3. Senator John McCain, Republican of Arizona. 4. Muhammad Noor, Syrian terrorist. 5. Muaz Mustafa, SETF, Syrian Emergency Task Force. This is quite a Kodak moment. McCain was meeting with the head of ISIS, Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi, who was in the background. I'll come back to him later, along with the press officer for ISIS named Abu Mossa. Also in the picture is a wanted Syrian terrorist who specialized in kidnapping American journalists. His name was Muhammad Noor. And here is the other picture in Q drop number 1088. See the spider web? Q. Do you understand this Q drop and why these two pictures are connected? Q asked, see the spider web? Both pictures include the ISIS press secretary, Abu Mossa. But why did Q say, see the spider web? Q was telling us to look at the background of the second picture. What do you see on the walls in the background? The first picture has spider webs, but the second picture has a label on the walls. The material for those walls was provided by U.S. aid. As I mentioned in a previous article, U.S. aid is a CIA front group run through the State Department. Q was showing us that taxpayer money is funding ISIS in Syria, which is a CIA terrorist group. We are funding our enemies, and I believe McCain promised them a lot more money on this trip. Pictured here, al-Baghdadi in meeting with John McCain. Notice to whom McCain is talking directly. Close-up of al-Baghdadi speaking to McCain. That is al-Baghdadi, leader of ISIS. The guy who helped set up the whole meeting in Syria is the guy sitting next to McCain in the white t-shirt and wearing the scarf. His name is Muaz Mustafa. Q told us he was important and to dig on his background and history. Q drop number 1097 of April 8th, 2018. Dig, social media contacts, worked for who? Access level, find all pics, bigger than you know. One example of many. Awan. Q. He's bigger than we know. Q compared him to the Awan brothers. Who is he? Why is he so important? Q drop number 1094 of April 8th, 2018. Flag. SEC detail background, all looking away. Security detail background, all looking away. Trusted, close proximity. Refugees who worked, U.S. House, Senate, traitor. Q. Flag. Can you see the little flag lapel pin that McCain was wearing? It wasn't an American flag, it was a Syrian rebel flag. There it is. Did you know that this meeting McCain had with ISIS in Syria happened on Memorial Day? Of all the days not to wear an American flag pin, as I've said before, John McCain is the worst kind of traitor. Muaz Mustafa is pictured in the Q drop standing with McCain next to the photographer. He's described as being in a trusted, close proximity. But why does Q say refugees who work or worked U.S. House/Senate? Who is Muaz Mustafa? Muaz Mustafa, Syrian activist and member of the Government Relations Committee of the Coalition for a Democratic Syria, CDS. So, he was a member of a government relations committee supporting Syria and was a lobbyist for ISIS, according to the World Bank. Quote, Muaz Mustafa is currently the executive director for the Syrian Emergency Task Force, SETF, political director of a United for a Free Syria, UFS, and serves on the Government Relations Committee of the Coalition for a Democratic Syria, CDS. A former staffer for U.S. Congressman Vic Snyder and U.S. Senator Blanche Lincoln, Mr. Mustafa spent 4.5 years working in Congress before leaving to work briefly with Egypt's U.S.-based opposition. End quote. Mustafa actually worked as a staffer in Congress for several years before leaving to work briefly with Egypt's U.S.-based opposition. Can you say Muslim Brotherhood in Egypt? The Awan brothers weren't the only ones working for Congress with Muslim Brotherhood ties. Obama filled his administration with their sympathizers. More from the World Bank. Quote, while working with SETF, Mr. Mustafa has led delegations to the Syrian border for journalists and lawmakers, including U.S. Senator McCain's visit with the Northern Storm Brigade inside Syria and U.S. Representative Kinzinger, and Holdings' visit with various Free Syrian Army commanders in Antakya, Turkey, in 2014. End quote. The Northern Storm Brigade is the al-Qaeda offshoot in Syria that Mohammed Noor was associated with. He was the one circled with the camera pictured with McCain and Mustafa in the meeting. But did you catch the name of the other congressman mentioned in the article who was also tied to these terrorist groups in Syria. There he is, crying Adam Kinzinger. Another backstabbing Republican traitor, just like John McCain. I had never heard of Kinzinger before Trump was elected, but he quickly became one of Trump's biggest critics. But as Q said in Q drop number 2576 of December 10th, 2018, those with the most to lose are the loudest. Those who knowingly broke the law in a coordinated effort, treason, are the most vocal. Crimes against humanity, Q. Trump's loudest critics all seem to be the biggest traitors. That's not a coincidence. Q purposely emphasized the word knowingly and connected it to treason. Why? Knowingly is a legal term. Summary from Brave search engine: seditious conspiracy. Quote, the federal crime of seditious conspiracy, as outlined in Chapter 18, United States Code, Section 2384, involves whoever knowingly or willfully advocates, abets, advises, or teaches the duty, necessity, desirability, or propriety of overthrowing or destroying the government of the United States. Here, knowingly emphasizes that the accused person intentionally and deliberately promoted or supported the overthrow or destruction of the government, rather than acting out of ignorance or mistake, end quote. Both McCain and Kinzinger are traitors. They were both connected to Muaz Mustafa, who led them on trips to Syria. Let's connect some more dots. Mustafa was the executive director for the Syrian Emergency Task Force. What is the SETF? According to Wikipedia, quote, the Syrian Emergency Task Force, SETF, is a United States-based 501c3 organization established in March 2011 to support the Syrian opposition. SETF advocates in solidarity with the Syrian rebels to inform and educate the American public and its representatives about their struggle. The Syrian Emergency Task Force, founded 2011, headquarters Washington, D.C., U.S., key people, Muaz Mustafa, executive director, end quote. Mustafa traveled with and helped coordinate McCain's meeting in Syria. Did you see where his nonprofit had its headquarters? It was in Washington, D.C. It was a lobbying firm for the ISIS terrorists. But there was another important member of the SETF who joined McCain on this trip that I bet nobody knows about. Have you ever heard the name Elizabeth Obagi? That's her in the background of this picture. Who is she? According to the Shubat Foundation, Elizabeth Obagi is listed as a political director for the Syrian Emergency Task Force in the group's Washington, D.C. office. SETF lobbies Congress on behalf of the Syrian rebels. During a Senate hearing this week, Senator John McCain, perhaps the most vocal supporter of the Syrian rebels in Congress, pointed to an op-ed by the 26-year-old Obagi that appeared in the Wall Street Journal on August 30th, end quote. Nobody had ever heard of her before, and suddenly she was an expert analyst on Syria who was being invited on news shows and writing op-ed pieces for the Wall Street Journal. McCain then used that op-ed piece in the Wall Street Journal as evidence in a Senate hearing in order to pressure Congress to fund these freedom fighters who were trying to overthrow Assad.
Okay, John, over the weekend, the Wall Street Journal ran an important op-ed by Dr. Elizabeth Obagi. I hope you saw it. A Syria analyst at the Institute for the Study of War. Spent a great deal of time inside Syria, including just this month, and I want to read her assessment of the situation on the ground. And I quote the story. The conventional wisdom holds that the extremist elements are completely mixed in with the more moderate rebel groups. This isn't the case. Moderates and extremists wield control over distinct territory. Contrary to many media accounts, the war in Syria is not being waged entirely or even predominantly by dangerous Islamists and al-Qaeda diehards. The jihadists pouring into Syria from countries like Iraq and Lebanon are not flocking to the front lines. Instead, they are concentrating their efforts on consolidating control in the northern rebel-held areas of the country. Moderate opposition forces, a collection of groups known as the Free Syrian Army, continue to lead the fight against the Syrian regime. While traveling with some of these Syrian army battalions, I've watched them defend Alawi and Christian villages from government forces and extremist groups. They've demonstrated a willingness to submit to civilian authority, working closely with local administrative councils, and they've struggled to ensure that their fight against Assad will pave the way for a flourishing civil society. John, do you agree with Dr. Obegi's assessment of the opposition?
I agree with most of that. They have changed significantly. They've improved. And as I said earlier, the fundamentals of Syria are secular, and I believe will stay that way.
And I think it's very important to point out again, as you just said, it's a secular state. They would reject radical Islamists, and they, in some cases, in the areas in which they have control, the people are demonstrating against them, is the information I have. So when we see these commentators say, well, we don't know which side will win, we don't know who the bad guys are. If you agree with this assessment, we certainly know who the bad guys are. Is that correct?
I believe we do for the most part.
For the most.
There are some worse than al-Nusra, and they tend to be, most of them, in the northern area.
McCain and Obegi, along with John Kerry, were pushing a lie that said moderate rebel fighters were completely separate from terrorist extremists and they didn't commingle. The pictures showing McCain meeting with General Selim Idris, who was considered a moderate along with the leaders of ISIS, prove that that's a lie. But who is Elizabeth Obegi, and what's her background? How did she become such an expert on Syria at the young age of 26? Let me give you a hint. All assets were deployed. When McCain used her op-ed as evidence, he referred to her as Dr. Elizabeth Obegi. That certainly made her sound like an expert. But who was she really working for? Who was controlling Elizabeth Obegi? More from the Shubat Foundation, quote, let's go back to Obegi for a moment. In the SETF press release that announces her addition as a political director, it says that she, quote, gained a master's in Arab studies from Georgetown University. Georgetown University is under the very strong influence of Saudi Prince Al-Walid bin Talal. From the university's website, quote, in December 2005, the Center for Muslim-Christian Understanding, CMCU, received a $20 million gift from His Royal Highness Prince Al-Walid bin Talal, an internationally renowned businessman and global investor, to support and expand the Center for Muslim-Christian Understanding. The center was renamed the Prince Al-Walid bin Talal Center for Muslim-Christian Understanding, ACMCU. This endowed fund was the second largest single gift in Georgetown University history. The director of the ACMCU is none other than Professor John Esposito, a renowned Muslim Brotherhood apologist. How does this all involve Obegi? Remember, she earned a master's in Arab studies from this university. Guess who's listed as faculty for the Department of Arabic and Islamic Studies? Prince Al-Walid bin Talal's guy at the university, John Esposito, end quote. Everything is connected. John McCain was a puppet of Prince Al-Walid, and so was Elizabeth Obegi. They were both pushing for war in Syria to remove Assad, while lobbying for money which would go to fund ISIS. This was all part of the 16-year plan. And Elizabeth Obegi was pushed throughout the media as an expert on Syria. McCain used her expertise on Syria to push for a no-fly zone and increased military support, similar to what they did in Libya to topple Gaddafi. It was the exact same playbook. But just days later, her reputation was destroyed by what I believe was another ghosts in the machine move by the military. It was perfect timing. What happened? According to Cision PR Web, quote, CNN reported that a lie about earning a PhD cost a Syria expert her job as an analyst days after her op-ed in the Wall Street Journal was cited by Secretary of State John Kerry and Senator John McCain in congressional hearings about possible U.S. military action in the war-torn country. Quote, the Institute for the Study of War has learned and confirmed that, contrary to her representation, Ms. Elizabeth Obegi does not, in fact, have a PhD degree from Georgetown University. ISW has accordingly terminated Ms. Obegi's employment effective immediately, the Institute posted in an online statement Wednesday. Obegi received a Master of Arts degree in Arab Studies from Georgetown University in May and was allegedly working on her dissertation for a PhD. CNN states that Obegi has appeared on several television networks, including BBC, CNN, Fox, and PBS. Last week, she was a guest on CNN Newsroom and Fox News speaking about Syria. Because of the revelation about her false doctorate, Obegi will not appear again as an analyst on CNN networks, end quote. This helped to derail the effort in Congress to commit our military to topple Assad. Now, let's go back to the original drop on McCain's first trip to Syria back in May of 2013. How big of a traitor was John McCain? Q asked, what was delivered? Smiles. I'm willing to bet that McCain was there with a whole bunch of money, and it made this group of ISIS leaders very happy. The man circled in the picture wasn't very well known at the time, but he was about to become notorious. Yes, that is Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi, the future leader of ISIS. Several people pointed that out after seeing the picture, which caused the McCain allies in the controlled media to say that it was all just conspiracy theories. They defended McCain and claimed the person circled was a commander from the Free Syrian Army, but they wouldn't give his name or verify his identity. There's a reason for that. There are several clues to the fact that it was al-Baghdadi. First of all, Q circled him for a reason. Eric Prince, who is now working with Trump, also knows who all of the people in the picture are. Blackwater shadowed McCain everywhere. But there's more proof. Baghdadi's wife said that they had moved to Syria in 2012. According to the BBC, quote, as Iraq fell into bloody sectarian war that lasted from 2006 to 2008, she no longer had any doubt that he was involved in Sunni jihadist groups. In 2010, he became the leader of the Islamic State of Iraq, formed in 2006. This was an umbrella group of Iraqi jihadi organizations. Quote, we moved to the Idlib countryside in Syria in January 2012, and there it became absolutely clear to me that he was the emir, the leader, Hudayfa says. The Islamic State of Iraq was one of the groups that later joined forces to form the wider Islamic State group that declared a caliphate, an Islamic State governed in accordance with Sharia by someone considered a deputy of the Prophet Muhammad on earth 2 years later. At that time, she says he started to wear Afghani dress, grew a beard, and carried a pistol, end quote. Here's a picture of al-Baghdadi speaking at a mosque in 2014 before he grew his beard out and changed his wardrobe. More from the BBC, quote, then in 2004, a year after the U.S.-led invasion of Iraq, American forces detained al-Baghdadi and held him at the detention center at Camp Bucca in the south for about a year, along with many other men who would become senior figures in ISIS and other jihadist groups, end quote. We actually held him in custody at one time because he was affiliated with al-Qaeda. This is one of his mugshots. Was al-Baghdadi in Syria at the time that John McCain traveled there to meet with the so-called rebel leaders? According to militaryhistory.fandom.com, quote, in April 2013, the leader of the Islamic State of Iraq Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi released a recorded audio message on the internet in which he announced that Jabhat al-Nusra was an extension of al-Qaeda in Iraq and Syria. Al-Baghdadi said that Abu Muhammad al-Jalani, the leader of Jabhat al-Nusra, had been dispatched by the group along with a group of men to Syria to meet with pre-existing cells in the country. Al-Baghdadi also said that the Islamic State of Iraq had provided Jabhat al-Nusra with the plans and strategy needed for the Syrian civil war and had been providing them funding on a monthly basis. End quote. Baghdadi was the leader of ISI, Islamic State of Iraq, which was a major al-Qaeda group that we were fighting in Iraq. They officially joined together with Jabhat al-Nusra, which was a brutal and bloodthirsty al-Qaeda affiliate in Syria. Baghdadi had been providing them with monthly funding and a strategy to overthrow Assad in Syria. Where was Baghdadi getting all of this money? Remember, John McCain had traveled to Syria to meet with these ISIS leaders on May 28, 2013, and I believe he brought them a lot of money. Was Baghdadi in Syria at the same time as John McCain? More from militaryhistory.fandom.com. Quote, in May 2013, a video was released on the internet showing masked men publicly execute 3 captured Alawite officers in the eastern town of Raqqa. The men identified themselves as being members of the Islamic State of Iraq and al-Sham. In the same month, Reuters reported that the leader of the Islamic State of Iraq, Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi, had traveled from Iraq to Syria's Aleppo governorate province and began attempting to take over the leadership of al-Nusra. There were media reports that the group had suffered a split, with many of al-Nusra's foreign fighters operating under the banner of the Islamic State of Iraq and the Levant, and many Syrian Nusra fighters leaving the group to join other Islamist brigades. End quote. Don't miss that key point. After followers of al-Baghdadi publicly executed 3 Syrian officers in May of 2013, Baghdadi traveled from Iraq to Syria to take over the al-Nusra group in Syria. He was in Syria in May when John McCain made his trip there. Was that just a coincidence? Baghdadi had just begun expanding the Islamic State of Iraq outside of the country in April, and he had recently changed their name. They now went by the name of ISIL, Islamic State of Iraq and the Levant. Levant is the former name for the geographical area of the Eastern Mediterranean that is now occupied by Lebanon, Syria, and Israel. McCain went to Syria to meet al-Baghdadi with Obama's approval. This was all planned. Both were al-Walid puppets. The fact that they ran against each other for the presidency in 2008 is a joke. Our elections are a fraud. It's just a big game. Speaking of elections, Obama was struggling to win re-election back in 2012. Then, in 2011, he took credit for killing Osama bin Laden, which helped him win re-election. He distracted the American people away from ISIS by eliminating the guy that we were told was responsible for 9/11. Meanwhile, ISIS was allowed to expand in both Iraq and Syria. Do you remember how Obama always used the term ISIL when talking about ISIS? He did that for a specific reason. He tried to keep the American people's attention focused on al-Qaeda in Iraq, ISIL, while ignoring al-Qaeda in Syria, ISIS. He also described them as the junior varsity team compared to al-Qaeda. Do you remember that? A portion of Q drop number 2640 of December 21st, 2018. Hussein, ISIS JV team. Did ISIS form on Hussein's watch? Did Hussein take care of business or allow them to expand? How long did it take POTUS to eradicate and destroy ISIS? The American people are waking up to the truth. Obama helped form ISIS and then allowed them to expand. That's treason. According to WorldNet Daily, quote, 9 months ago, Barack Obama gave an interview to David Remick of The New Yorker after ISIS, the very accomplished and high-achieving Islamic killing machine in the Middle East, captured Fallujah an Iraqi city for which many good American soldiers had sacrificed their lives and limbs, taking from Sunni jihadists in 2004. Remnick asked Obama about al-Qaeda's resurgence in Iraq. Obama responded by suggesting to Remnick that he had pretty much personally killed Osama bin Laden 3 years earlier and pretty much single-handedly decimated al-Qaeda. Remnick pointed out to Obama that since he had ordered U.S. military forces to leave Iraq, the al-Qaeda flag was now flying over Fallujah. ISIS, regarded as an al-Qaeda affiliate in Iraq, had since taken over the city. It was, at this point in the interview, Obama infamously provided Remnick with the following woefully inarticulate sports analogy. Yes, but David, I think the analogy we use around here sometimes, and I think is accurate, that is if a JV team puts on Lakers uniforms, that doesn't make them Kobe Bryant. I think there's a distinction between the capacity and reach of a bin Laden and a network that is actively planning a major terrorist plots against the homeland versus jihadists who are engaged in various local power struggles and disputes, often sectarian. End quote. 9 months later, ISIS is perceived by U.S. intelligence, senior military officers, and most conscious observers not as a nuisance, not as a localized, inexperienced rogue group, but as a grave threat to the balance of power and stability of the entire Middle East, and a strategic threat to the security of the U.S. and the world. End quote. There's a reason he tried to hide the threat that ISIS posed to the American people. They were actually an extension of al-Qaeda and a much more violent and evil faction. The world would soon see evidence of that as they began posting brutal public executions and slaughtering innocent people as they took their women and young girls as sex slaves. That's who McCain was meeting with in Syria. They weren't freedom fighters like he suggested. John McCain on Twitter. Important visit with brave fighters in #Syria who are risking their lives for freedom and need our help. It was the same playbook when the CIA/shadow government trained and funded the Mujahideen in Afghanistan, who then became al-Qaeda. We called them freedom fighters too. Senator Rand Paul was taking on McCain publicly over wanting to fund ISIS and didn't buy into the narrative that these were moderates in Syria. McCain isn't used to being challenged, and it flustered him. According to Reason.com, quote, Senator John McCain made quite the gaffe on Sean Hannity's show last night while criticizing Senator Rand Paul's opposition to arming the moderate Syrian rebels. McCain slipped up and accidentally implied that he had met with ISIS. McCain clearly meant to say he had met with the Free Syrian Army, the Syrian rebel group that McCain and the Obama administration support, and was vouching for its trustworthiness. The mix-up is noteworthy because critics like Paul are arguing that arming the Syrian rebels is not categorically different from arming ISIS, our enemy, since those weapons eventually make their way into the hands of ISIS terrorists anyway. End quote. Seems like McCain's conscience got the better of him for once. McCain was there to help the Islamic State of Iraq, ISIL, expand into Syria. Why? Syria was where the bomb was being built for the 16-year plan. They created the Islamic State of Iraq and Syria, ISIS. Since Osama bin Laden was now dead, and the old guard al-Qaeda were rapidly diminishing, the CIA shadow government needed a new threat for the never-ending war on terror. Fear has always been a big motivator. The brutality that ISIS showed to the world would be a great motivator for another long, extended war to launder trillions more taxpayer dollars in the Middle East. They were also going ahead with their 16-year plan while trying to topple another leader who was aligned with Putin. It had worked perfectly in Libya, so why not replicate the same template in Syria? John McCain was determined to take down Bashar al-Assad, just like he helped to take down Gaddafi. There was just one huge problem. He was up against Trump and our military, and he had also committed treason. Trump took the gloves off and unleashed our military to destroy ISIS. He did the opposite of what Obama had done. Q drop number 1098 of April 8th, 2018. Why did Hussein protect ISIS? POTUS, ISIS, focus and destroy 1 year versus Hussein 8 years versus GWB, DC access sold out. Bring back the gallows. Q. Do you think Q was just kidding about bringing back the gallows? I don't think so. There's a reason that the federal death penalty was reinstated under Trump and that the Democrats were desperately trying to pass a law outlawing lynching. Obama is a traitor, but so is McCain. There's a reason that McCain took a secret trip in a panic to Syria right after Trump was inaugurated and then was faking cancer and surgery. Q drop number 1326 of May 10th, 2018. Names, no name previous meetings, panic, discussions of death/funeral, medical, or escape. Now comes the pain. Q. This drop is all about McCain being a traitor. Why was he panicked? Here's Trump's tweet mentioned in that Q drop. Donald J. Trump on Twitter, May 10th, 2018. 5 most wanted leaders of ISIS just captured. These 5 most wanted ISIS leaders weren't killed. They were captured. Was McCain afraid they were now going to talk? I bet he was. Q says he was now planning some kind of escape or medical emergency, maybe a fake death. So McCain has knowingly committed treason and sedition by aiding and funding ISIS. He was being defiant by voting against the Obamacare repeal that he said he would support and was going to fight Trump to the bitter end. If there was ever a person who deserved to face justice, it's no-name McCain. Let's not forget that he also played a major role in trying to frame Trump for Russian collusion by pushing the phony Steele dossier to the media and the FBI while coordinating with foreign intelligence agencies to spy on President Trump. From Imam Tahidi, quote, John McCain was on his way to becoming an American hero, but instead became a senator for ISIS and the Muslim Brotherhood. No American senator fought for Islamist rights and the arming of jihadists like Senator McCain. Trying to take down a duly elected president and arming our enemies sure seem like 2 huge examples of treason. I asked the question at the beginning of this article, will we ever enter the justice phase? Well, for at least one traitor, we now know that he did face justice. Here are a string of Q drops referencing McCain, no name, leading right up to his death that are very interesting. Q drop number 1555 of June 18th, 2018. No name absent. End near. Q. Q drop number 1650 of June 30th, 2018. Think SC vote to confirm coming. No name action. Every dog has its day. Enjoy the show. Q. And then go Gowdy. And finally, it will not be Gowdy. Q drop number 1706 of July 25th, 2018. Pictured here, McCain holding up both hands. No name returning to headlines. Q. This last drop is a huge deal. It was posted on July 25th, 2018 at 7:28 p.m. No name returning to headlines. Q drop number 1764 of July 30th, 2018. From dni.gov, link, 2016 CERT FISC memo, OPIN order, April 2017.pdf. Nicholas Rasmussen, important name to remember, former director of NCTC, McCainInstitute.org. Nicholas Rasmussen. Think FISA. Think No Name. White House visitor logs. No Name and Hussein. Dates. White House visitor logs. No Name, Brennan, Hussein. Dates, White House visitor logs. No Name, Brennan, Comey, Hussein. Dates, White House visitor logs. No Name, Brennan, Clapper, Rice, Hussein. Dates. Q drop number 1850 of August 11th, 2018. From Fox News, West Virginia lawmakers move to impeach entire Supreme Court. Normal? Not updated. Not seeking re-election. Senate, Bob Corker, Republican. Jeff Flake, Republican. Orrin Hatch, Republican. No Name, Republican. Departure soon. No Name, departure soon in targeted brackets. And then, here's the most important Q drop for McCain. Q drop number 1933 of August 26th, 2018. Suicide weekend. Hands up, 30, 28 seconds. Impossible? Coincidence? We are in control. Big week ahead. Q. Look at the drop that has a picture of McCain with his hands in the air. Hands up. That drop was on July 25th, 2018. McCain died on August 25th, 2018. The time on the hands up drop was at 7:28, 28 seconds. Coincidence. We are in control. What happened? We chose the day that John McCain, the traitor, would face justice. Suicide weekend. McCain faced justice and chose suicide over a firing squad or hanging. Q drop number 2306 of October 1st, 2018. Simple. We made it public. Operation closed and cleaned. Coincidence, post drop. Coincidence, no name, exact 30. Coincidence, Senator Graham activated. In the end, you will be shocked to learn what you've essentially witnessed. Think NYC bomber fireworks hours prior. Where we go one, we go all. Q. Simple. They made it public for all the enemy to see. Operation closed and cleaned. They all know what's coming, which is why they are trying to delay justice any way possible. And many have been begging for deals. If justice can happen to one of the biggest traitors in American history before we actually enter the justice phase, then just wait. The actual justice phase is going to be massive. This is a real war. And we are waging it mostly behind the scenes until we enter the justice phase. But the justice phase is coming, my friends. But that's not the end of the story. The war never stops. Donald Trump on Twitter from October 26th, 2019. Something very big has just happened. According to the Washington Post. Pictured here, President Trump in the Situation Room with National Security Advisor Robert O'Brien, left, Vice President Pence, Defense Secretary Mark T. Esper, Joint Chiefs Chairman General Mark A. Milley, and Brigadier General Marcus Evans, Deputy Director for Special Operations on the Joint Staff on Saturday. Quote, Trump strode to the podium in the diplomatic room alone around 9:20 a.m. Sunday morning wearing a red tie. As a retinue of top aides, sans Acting Chief of Staff Mick Mulvaney stood nearby, along with Senator Lindsey O. Graham, Republican of South Carolina. Trump described the raid in surprisingly precise, if unverified, terms. The leader of the Islamic State, Trump said, died surrounded by American forces in an Idlib tunnel Saturday night, detonating a suicide vest as American forces and dogs circled. The president also said Baghdadi had taken 3 small children with him into the dead-end tunnel, effectively leading them to their deaths. End quote. Our military had hunted down and killed al-Baghdadi, the founder and leader of ISIS. More from the Washington Post, quote, he called Baghdadi's followers losers and frightened puppies. Quote, he died after running into a dead-end tunnel, whimpering, screaming, and crying all the way, Trump said. Later, he said it again. Quote, he died like a dog. He died like a coward. He was whimpering, screaming, and crying, Trump said. And frankly, I think that's something that should be brought out, end quote. Trump called al-Baghdadi's followers frightened puppies and said al-Baghdadi died like a dog. The military also recovered a lot of documents and information. I bet that evidence will reveal even more traitors. The gloves are going to come off soon, and there will be nowhere for the enemy to hide. As for McCain, I have more coming on him. Trump knew he was a traitor and refused to show him any respect. According to NBC News, quote, the U.S. Navy has acknowledged that a request was made to hide the USS John S. McCain during President Donald Trump's recent state visit to Japan. Quote, a request was made to the U.S. Navy to minimize the visibility of USS John S. McCain. However, all ships remained in their normal configuration during the president's visit. Rear Admiral Charlie Brown, chief of information, said in a statement to NBC News. The Wall Street Journal reported Wednesday that it had reviewed an email to Navy and Air Force officials dated May 15th that included the direction USS John McCain needs to be out of sight for Trump's Japan visit. CNBC has also obtained the email. NBC News has not reviewed the email, end quote. What do you want to bet? That when we enter the justice phase, McCain's name is going to be removed from a lot of things. My next article finally gets to Libya and Benghazi. Did you know that Musa Mustafa was heavily involved in the overthrow of Gaddafi along with McCain? Did you know that he was the head of a similar lobbyist group for Libya as the one in D.C. called Syrian Emergency Task Force? Guess what it was called? The Libyan Emergency Task Force. The exact same playbook. Guys, do me a favor, hit the thumbs up on this. That is Joe Lange. I think this is my favorite piece from Joe Lange now. He keeps upping his game. Check it out at badlands.substack.com. Support what I do here by going to epicminerals.net. And if you do, and you buy anything at all, you get entered for 20 people, 20 purchasers. If there's only 20 people buying, all you get one. Until Sunday, you get rose geranium essential oil infused body butter, rose geranium essential oil infused rainfall, both of them amazing to the nose, best smell you'll ever come into contact with. Get anything. Here's an example of what you can get. Get it right now. You're gonna love it.
He said something that really hit home about this phenomena of chemtrails.
Manganese will make you kill your mama. How much manganese are you spraying in my neighborhood at night while I'm asleep? Military and some commercial jets have been fitted with huge barrels of at least 49 different kinds of documented chemical poisons. Barium is toxic to all mammals. Aluminum is known to diminish kidney function and destroy brain cells and cognitive function. A problem, a serious problem.
Patent number 5003186 describes cooling the Earth with metal oxides sprayed into the stratosphere.
And I thought, well, geez, this is what I do for a living. I was finding tons and tons of large quantities of aluminum, barium, strontium in the forms of oxides and sulfates. Instead of protecting the people, we are poisoning the people.
Detox and prevent heavy metal poisoning. www.epicminerals.net, promo code Badlands. Either promo code Badlands, promo code Shapiro. In this case, both of them get 10% off your order. So check that out. Rose geranium infused. God, guys, I can't tell you how much I love the scent of rose geranium. It regulates hormones. Look it up. I did. That's why I'm saying it. Anyway, check out badlands.substack.com in general, and make sure to check out what I do here. I promise you I'm going to start doing Reading Epic Threads more often. It's just been swamped to hell. And make sure to check out Hindsight 2020 coming on at the Rug Pull Radio time tonight. New episode. Chris and I recorded it. I believe we recorded it yesterday. So definitely check that out as well. Thanks, everybody, for watching, and let us pray. Saint Michael the Archangel, defend us in battle. Be our protection against the wickedness and snares of the devil. May God rebuke him, we humbly pray. And do thou, O Prince of the heavenly host, by the power of God, cast into hell Satan and all evil spirits who prowl about the world, seeking the ruin of souls. Amen. I love you all. Thank you so much for being here. I'll see you tomorrow.